You want to hear the real story behind the rock artists, the albums, and the songs that have become the soundtrack of your life, straight from the legends who lived them? I'm Adam Reeder, the Professor of Rock, and on the Professor of Rock podcast, we go deep into the heart of the music that defines us and our greatest memories. Exclusive interviews, behind-the-scenes moments, and the untold truths of rock's greatest hits, told by the artists themselves, stories you won't find anywhere else. If music moves you, this is your backstage pass. Subscribe now to the Professor of Rock podcast.
When I'm looking for high-quality furniture that doesn't break the bank, I don't have to settle for subpar styles because I can find everything I need at Bob's Discount Furniture. At Bob's, I can score everyday low prices on pieces that real customers love, like Consumer Reports recommended mattresses, real marble dining sets, and the best-selling modular Bob's Sectional, which has over 1,700 five-star reviews. So stock up on five-star style and visit Bob's, where America shops for furniture.
Hey there, Stackers. If you're brand new here, on Mondays, we always have a salute. So raise your mugs.
Raising.
On behalf of the men and women making podcast in Mom's Basement and the men and women who are trying to fill their basket with as many Benjamins as they possibly can. Here's to those people that kept us safe all weekend. Thank you to our troops, to our veterans. Thanks to all you do. Let's go stack some Benjamins together now, shall we?
Thanks, everybody.
He's the type of guy you get halfway home from the theme park before you're like, oh, where's Doug? Oh, no, we have to go back. My wallet's in his fanny pack, so. Oh, do not feel bad for Doug. He's terrible. Every time he tells a story, somewhere, a child loses a balloon.
Live from Joe's mom's basement, it's the Stacking Benjamin Show. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and how about we find ways to add money in your pocket without adding more risk? How do you do that? We'll share a framework you probably haven't considered. Plus, OG and Anna are back with some more financial basics. This week, how to take more efficient withdrawals from your funds during retirement. Sure, you might not retire tomorrow, but when do you want to learn this stuff? 2 hours before? We'll help you get ahead of the curve. And as always, you'll be way ahead of the curve with your friends as I share some shareable and mind-bending trivia. And now, two guys who will bend your mind toward more confident investing. It's Joe and O-J-J-J-J-G.
Hey there, new and longtime stackers. Welcome to the Stacking Benjamin Show. I am Joe Saul-Sehy, the co-host of the greatest money show on earth. And the guy across the card table does this with me. Mr. OG is here. How are you this fine Monday, my friend?
Well, Joe, I'm live from Hollywood Studios today. And I can't really talk very long because I got to get on Ride of the Resistance here. So I'm going to do that. But what do you need from me today, man? Because I got chop.
That sound you're going to hear in the background is the sound of money leaving OG's pocket throughout today's episode.
I watched a bunch of videos about lightning lane passes, multi-passes, single-day passes, priority premier passes.
You need a PhD.
Yeah, well, when I got to the point where the lightning lane pass was 3 times as expensive as the park pass, I was like, okay, something in this doesn't exactly math out. So I'll just stand in line.
Yeah, get there early, do the thing. You're already there early. Look we're recording this at 4 a.m.
I know. So yeah, they let me in early. It's unbelievable. I said, "Do you know who I am? I'm the OG." And they're like, "Pardon me, sir. Right this way."
Oh,
surprisingly, there was already a line of 1,000 people though. So I guess
that's because they stayed at the resort.
They're still in line from yesterday.
Well, we got a great show, and thank you for being here, for showing up, because according to Vanguard, you can add 3% to your portfolio if you have a great advisor. And the question that I always wonder is, everybody's looking for this esoteric stuff, right? How do I add 1% to my portfolio and have it not mean any more risk to me? Well, I thought about that, OG, and I thought there's a bunch of stuff you can do that can add a little tweak here, a little nip and tuck there, and you can come up with maybe 1%, maybe 2%, maybe 3%. Who knows? But we're going to go over that today. Esoteric, not esoteric. We're going to talk about stuff that works and stuff that doesn't work. How about that?
I like it.
Today, we have not only a great episode talking about that, of course, we got OG and Anna. We have a couple sponsors who help us make sure that we can keep making these episodes, and it's all free to you. The first of which is The Vault. The teams at Array and Budget Simple have gotten together and worked their magic. They've created the power of Monarch money budgeting and net worth tracking with Rocket Money ability to kill unwanted subscriptions and the credit bureau's ability to keep bad actors from your credit. All of those organizations, but in one Swiss Army knife. Go to stackingbenjamins.com/vault to see how it works and to sign up. I think you'll love it as much as I do. We got a couple more here, and then only one other sponsor break in the middle of Doug's trivia. So we're going to hear from them. And then OG, Doug, and I, we're going to dig into how to make more money up here without taking on more risk. Well, if you'd like to stay busy and hunger strikes around noon or when your day's done, you know, it's easy to go and make a bad decision when you're exhausted. There's something healthy in your fridge that you should be making, but instead you break your budget. You end up feeling horrible all afternoon or all evening because instead you decide to go out to a restaurant that just doesn't really care about how you feel. Much like a good budget, eating healthy isn't a willpower problem. It's a setup problem. That's why things changed for me when I found Factor. With Factor, I can hit my nutrition goals, feel good all afternoon or evening without the planning, the grocery run, or the cooking. Factor is meals built around your goals, whether it's weight loss, overall nutrition, more protein, or GLP-1 support. For strength and workout recovery, check out Factor's Muscle Pro collection. Every meal is crafted with functional ingredients like lean protein, colorful vegetables, whole foods, healthy fats. Factor bans over 175 different ingredients. There's no artificial colors or sweeteners, no high fructose corn syrup, no refined seed oils, just nutrient-dense food. What surprised me initially was that it all came and it was fresh. It wasn't frozen. There's over 100 rotating weekly meals, including globally inspired flavors like Mediterranean and Asian. So there's always something new to look forward to. Try the newly launched ready-to-eat salads with vibrant ingredients like elote corn. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. I've had it. Tastes good. Is it pronounced elote? I don't know. But I do know the next line, miso edamame, and it's very good. Plus 70-plus add-ons to round out your nutrition, from green juices to peanut butter energy bites. It's ready in 2 minutes. Factor shops, preps, cooks, and delivers straight to your door, so you have more time for anything you love. And guess what? You're going to feel great afterwards. I use Factor. I think you should too. You're going to absolutely love it. Head to factormeals.com/SB50off and use code SB50off to get 50% off and free daily greens per box with new subscriptions only while supplies last until 9/27/2026. See website for more details. Well, Stackers, you and I both want higher returns, but if the answer isn't taking more risk, what if it's just becoming more efficient, right? Maybe there's some inefficiencies, OG, that we can get rid of, almost like on the new Muppets Rock and Roller Coaster. Maybe right now you've got an old minivan with some bricks in the trunk, and instead you want to be like the fast loop-to-loop.
Well, you know, the Rock and Roller Coaster is scheduled to open today. I've never been on it. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh,
but if
you
I
never
had
went
bricks,
on the old one with the
if I had bricks in my trunk, if you know what I mean. Is that what we're talking about?
Well, and this is the key to make the car run faster, so to speak, when it comes to what you're doing. I think what most people do, most DIY investors do, OG, is they try to optimize investments. And I will bet there's a bunch of people that came to this episode going, oh, good, we're going to add like 1% yield to all of our investments, or we're going to, figure out like how to build a filter using AI that's going to help us find like the magic sauce of the right investments. But while DIY investors are optimizing investments, I feel like when you talk to really wealthy people, they're optimizing systems. And this is where I want to spend most of our time today.
Yeah, I would say that, or optimizing for outcomes, not the inputs. Yep.
I gave a lot of thought to this. So, OG, I love to get your take on what you think about my thinking. I feel like the most underrated return booster, and this will be great if you're new here, especially because the key between really wealthy investors and people who are brand new to all this stuff is simply staying invested. I think staying invested is number one, the biggest return booster of all.
Well, I mean, staying invested in NVIDIA stock. I think that like that last little prepositional phrase at the end is really the missing link to a successful.
It's easy to forget, Joe. Don't worry about
successful retirement piece.
Could be NVIDIA, could be the penny stock.
Well, probably not that one. But it's funny you took this time angle because I thought that you were going to say time, and you did in some way, shape, or form. You took the time angle as I need to continually be invested, as opposed to the time angle of I need to start as early as possible. I think there's two sides of the same coin, both worth exploring a little bit further. But what you're talking about in terms of staying invested is not paying attention to short-term day-to-day news cycles. It's even hard to call a day-to-day thing a cycle, but short-term news things that lead you to believe that it's a long-term issue that affects your portfolio. And the way that you can kind of stress test this is go grab a business section newspaper, head on down to the library, get some microfiche access.
Whoa.
Just pull up, the Wall Street Journal app or the Apple News app or whatever you've got and go back in time and find a news article from a year ago or from 2 years ago or from 2 months ago and just think through the storylines that were going on and how specifically bad it was for investors because of this specific storyline. As recently as, war in Middle East or inflation or tariffs and inflation, or this person's elected and this person's not, or this person's not elected and this person is. Like every single storyline can be turned into, this is the reason why you need to hit pause. That's the whole objective, is to get people to freak out and do stuff. And because a lot of times with money, doing stuff equals transactions equals, revenue for the people who are in the business of that. So, but the one thing that you can learn from that is now look at those storylines from 5 years ago and go, oh yeah, I remember that was all the rage for about 90 minutes. That was the thing that was going to crater everything. And here we are 5 years later, the market's up whatever percent it is over that period of time. Every single solitary chaos bomb that gets dropped into your lap from a news cycle is forgotten tomorrow and has no long-term effect on your portfolio.
Over the years, if you just go back in time like that, you can see, I think time gives you the ability to see just how much a news addiction really can kill your results, because it creates the three things that I listed here. Number one, it creates panic selling. Number two, it creates this desire to time markets, right? Oh, I think based on the news cycle, it is here. Now, I used to be a guy that wanted to time the market, OG. And what I figured out early on, and this is kind of funny, when I want to time the market? The day I happened to watch CNBC. And then I thought, how crazy is it that every time I watch CNBC, I feel like today's the day. And when I don't watch CNBC for 2 weeks, it's not the day. But then I go back and I watch and, oh, today's the day. I got to make a bunch of moves. I got to make a ton of moves.
Yeah, it's that or reading something on Reddit or playing around with stuff on ChatGPT, which, by the way, is completely funny. But anytime that you're engaged in something, there's a usefulness in taking the next step. I would argue if you're starting to think about your health and you're like, I need to eat a little bit better, right? I'm going to really focus on eating a little bit better. Now is probably the time to go grab the Oreos out of the pantry and throw them out. Probably, right? Doug's like, ooh, hard pass. Now would be the time to eat all the Oreos so that they're not in
so they're not in there anymore.
Once they're in the cabinet, they're basically in your stomach.
I got a bunch of M&Ms sitting in my cabinet.
Yeah, you'd hate to waste all that money.
Yeah,
but nothing is more steadfast than going, I'm throwing the ice cream out that I just paid $6 for the half gallon for. So in some aspects of your life, taking the next step is the momentum that you need to kind of build the system, like you said, Joe. But money is, I think, the exact opposite. doing nothing is often the rightest answer. If that can be
the be rightest answer,
right.
I think is what you're looking for
Doug
there.
approved. Hashtag Doug approved.
On our YouTube channel, we have this interview that I keep going back to, which is the Stock Market Maestros, where they talk about the greatest investors out there. You'll love this interview. We will link to it in our show notes page. A key here that maestros do and that advisors do, this is why they work from an investment policy statement, because it's a shock absorber between your news addiction, which you might want to keep. I mean, I don't know why you would, but maybe you do want to keep. Maybe you get some type of perverse enjoyment from looking at all the things that could possibly go wrong. But it's this little barrier between you and your money that makes sure you're not going to make a move. I mean, this is why some people have advisors. You know, we see all the time that advisors, the advisor, when you take off their fees, well, they don't beat the index. Well, you know what? The advisor might not beat the index, OG, but they're probably beating you based on what all the research shows, right? Just having these little shock absorbers in place between you and your ability to jump on your Schwab account, your Fidelity account, and do the wrong thing is half the battle.
Yeah, there's no way to predict in advance whether or not any investment idea, strategy, model, system, whatever, is going to do better than something else. But I would submit that not only does it not matter to whether or not, somebody beats something, and this is with or without, advisor help. I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to be successful in our financial journey over our lifetimes based on our definition of success. Joe, what your definition is, it's going to be different than Doug's and different than mine, but that doesn't make mine better or worse than yours or yours better or worse than Doug's. This is your financial plan. The problem is that when we focus only on money, one area of financial planning, because all the other areas are absent, then that's the only thing you can evaluate. I was just talking to our new associate, Noah. We call him New Guy Noah. I call him New Guy Noah. I don't know what everybody else calls him, but I call him New Guy Noah.
Anna's probably not calling him that.
I'd probably not. I haven't even asked him whether or not he likes that. Maybe I should. But anyways, so I was talking to New Guy Noah about
Doug,
this.
in 3 weeks, this could be former employee Noah.
Oh,
No, it's not.
No, it won't be.
No one loves us.
It won't be.
I can already tell. But he came over from a more brokerage model. Like he has some experience. And one of his first questions that he had as we were getting ready for some meetings, he said, what tool do you use to go through all your portfolio performance with your clients? And I kind of chuckled because I said, well, technically we use this tool, but that's not a thing that we spend a lot of energy on. And he said, well, what the heck else do you talk about? And it dawned on me that his whole experience had been money, right? Like the money is the thing that matters. The money, back to your original kind of overarching idea here, Joe, the money is the tool that gets you to your goal. And if you don't have a clear goal or you don't have a clear understanding of how to get to your goal, then the only thing you're going to have to fall back on is, well, I don't know, maybe I should beat the Russell 3000. Is that a good goal? Well, not if you miss your retirement by 2 years and run out of money at 90, then no, it wasn't.
Well, let's define what you're talking about. And I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about. So let me.
Me neither sometimes, Joe.
Because I can hear some of our stackers that are screaming at their device. Well, if the money's not important, then what the hell are we doing here? Back when I was an advisor, we wouldn't chase the performance of the portfolio. We would chase the goal. So we would have benchmarks around, are we ahead of the game or behind the game when it comes to the goal? Number one, is this goal still relevant? Number two is, are we ahead or behind? If we're behind on the goal, is it our asset allocation? Is it what we did? Or is the culprit the fact that the market's just down and there really is nothing that we could have done differently about it? In which case, what are we going to do differently? Are we going to change the goal? Are we going to put more money in? Which is cool because then instead of chasing performance, what we chased was goal attainment, which meant that we were always doing the right thing. We were holding when the market went down, and we were looking for ways to create more income streams, which is a super important thing. That, by the way, when we created new income streams and the market was down, guess what happened when the market was up? We still had those income streams. We still created more money. So we look for, is there a raise? Is there a side hustle we've wanted to do for a long time that we're not working on? Like we'd have these fantastic conversations around, do we value this goal enough? to create new ways to attain it. I think that's what you're talking about here.
Yeah. I mean, because at the end of the day, nobody cares whether or not you average 8% or 8.2% over your lifetime. The thing that you care most about is, did I meet my financial independence goal? Did I not run out of money in retirement? Did I give money to the people and places that I care about in a manner in which I wanted to do that? Was I impactful to other people in my life? And so those are the standards by which you measure yourself, not what did my, mutual fund do compared to the other mutual funds in the world. Now, don't get me wrong, to your point, Joe, in terms of, a little bit of pushback here, that's a threshold issue. You got to be in the ballpark, right? If the market's up 10 and you're up 2, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I would also argue, by the way, if the market's up 10 and you're up 18, that's also a problem. It's just a different type of problem. But you got to be in the ballpark. But more specifically, you need to be in the ballpark of your return goal for your financial plan. If your return goal is, I need 6%, go get 6. Like, live a life of leisure and not have to worry about the daily ups and flows of the stock market as much, because 6 is your number. I would argue that you should be fully invested. And if 6 is your number to reach your goal, you need bigger goals so that, you can power compounding and over your lifetime and have really, really big impact. But if your financial goals get you there with 6%, then why are you trying to get 10 or 12? Like, what the heck? What are we doing? Absent a goal, absent a solidified dollar denominated, time bound, specific financial goal, you're going to fall back to whatever it is you think you need to fall back to. And the media generally will tell you the thing to fall back to is your portfolio performance.
I want to talk a little bit about another way that I thought people make create excess return without taking more risk. First
Leverage.
one, definitely staying invested. What's that?
I said leverage.
Well, it's funny. We'll get to leverage here in a second.
Oh, all right.
But I think this is the silent portfolio killer nobody talks about at parties, which is, I kind of groan as I say this, but I do think number 2 is a little bit of paying attention to taxes. When I look at inefficient portfolios, I think there's some cleanup that we all can do with our portfolio around asset location. Like, do I have the right type of shelter for my money? I can very quickly create a little bit more return without any more risk just by having the right asset location.
I hear what you're saying in terms of like a little bit of return and, just being a little bit more intentional. But Joe, you have to also remember the power of compounding that 0.5% over your lifetime and making those small changes as it relates to where the money is. And you kind of talked a little bit about taxes, which I'll circle back to in here a second. Those little bits of additional benefits pile up. But the problem is you don't see the pile up happening. And in our life, we don't get to see the here's what would have happened, here's what did happen comparison. You know what I mean? There's not like this was the path you were on until you made this asset allocation change. You don't get to compare yourself to it because it didn't happen. So there's no record of that in the future. So it's hard to produce that I told you so in terms of how did we make this better by being more intentional? Because it just is where it is now, so it's hard to kind of prove that backwards. But I do want to talk about taxes for a quick second. So we started doing this scorecard early March, just as a way for stackers to evaluate where they are. So it's just stackingbenjamins.com/scorecard. You can evaluate where you are. And I don't think the value is in necessarily figuring out where you are relative to other people. It's figure out where you are, then go do some things different, then go back and evaluate where you are again and see the change in your own life. That's the benefit of the scorecard. So you can take it multiple times. But the number one thing across the board, we've had, I don't know, maybe close to 500 people do it now in 2 months. Across the board, the number one thing is I have no tax strategy, or my tax strategy is not aligned with what I think it should be, or I'm tired of getting surprise tax bills, the occasional tax refund, but mostly surprise tax bills. I think that this is a bigger issue in the public than what we think, both in our firm and then also kind of on the show. I think this is something that we could spend a little bit more time on, I think, maybe in future seasons. This has been pretty eye-opening for me to learn kind of what's on everybody's mind in their commentary and in their notes.
Well, the good news is you're going to be covering some withdrawal sequencing on today's episode here right after the break. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that.
Of course I am.
Because I think that was big on my list here of ways. Just when you're in retirement, you've got all of these. You think about people that are going to jump out with parachutes out of a plane. It's like your money. Which ones do you send first? You send the Roth contingent first. You send the pre-tax money first. You send the others.
There's that, but I also think there's the tax benefit of making sure that it's growing correctly.
Yeah.
Along the way. So this is an emerging area for consumers to pay attention to.
What do you think about tax loss harvesting? Because I think it can be important, but let me be clear here. I feel like these robo-advisors that so many people use, like Betterment and Wealthfront, they emphasize their marketing around 20-something-year-olds. And I think they're the wrong people to be marketing tax loss harvesting toward. They barely have an opportunity there. But somebody with $500,000 invested, OG, might have a great opportunity for tax loss harvesting and isn't thinking about it.
I think that if you have a purpose for it, it's super helpful. If you're piling up your losses with a strategy for a particular outcome, like say, for example, that you have an investment portfolio or, a regular brokerage account, and you also have rental property, and you're going to sell your rental property in 10 years from now when you're retired. Well, undoubtedly, you're going to pay capital gains taxes on that rental property. The capital gain taxes from your rental property can be offset with capital losses from your brokerage account if you manage it correctly, and thus having a more tax advantaged sale at the time. I think in the long run, it's beneficial. In the short run, it can seem a lot like, well, I'm just taking money out and putting it back in, and now, I capitalized that loss, which was nice, but now I just started over with a lower basis because I just sold that thing and bought a new thing, and now that new thing, when it gets back to even money, now I pay taxes on the whole thing, not just the little bit that it would have been if I'd just let it sit there. That's why I think you got to have a plan for the losses that you're capitalizing, not just let me just pile these up for no particular reason. They can help for distributions. They can help for, lots of different reasons, but have a plan for what you're, why you're doing it. Why are you adding complexity? This is the question. If I add this complexity, because that's another layer in the math. If I add this complexity, what's the payoff?
The next area where I think we can add return has nothing to do with your portfolio at all. This is more around planning. And I think there's some things that we can think about, like as an example, planning when you're going to take Social Security, OG. Lots of discussions. Do I take it early? Do I take it late? Like financial advisors say, take it late. People tend to take it early because they think of retirement as a one-time event. And I'm just going to get it all done at once, right? I'm going to retire this year at 65, and I'm going to, at 65, take Social Security so I don't have to think about this again, and it's on autopilot. But Social Security timing can really change your portfolio dynamic, can change the amount of money you have available.
If everyone just took a look at their investment accounts and said, okay, this is my bucket of money here, but then also subsequently looked at their Social Security as a separate bucket of money, just like you go, well, I've got my IRA and I've got my Roth and I've got my brokerage account and I've got my real estate portfolio. I've also got my Social Security bucket. Once you kind of layer in the facts along each one of these things, I think it becomes pretty obvious what most people should choose, with the asterisk of, but this is why you do planning for yourself and not just, read what's in Newsweek and decide what to do based on it. Because at the end of the day, that bucket and Social Security has a guaranteed rate of return. Your bucket and maybe your IRA and Roth don't have a guaranteed rate of return, but could grow faster. So this is the trade. The other thing that's interesting about Social Security is you don't have to make a decision at 65 or 66 or 63 when you retire. You're just saying, I'm not making a decision today. And that's different than I'm making a decision. At 70, you have to make there's no decision to make at 70 if you make it that long. But what I would encourage people to do is as you're thinking about your withdrawal strategy, as you're thinking about your cash flow in retirement, think about Social Security as a bucket that has a guaranteed return between 63 or 62 and 70. And you can map out what that guaranteed return is. And then just think of it from the perspective of, I'm not deciding not to take it. I'm not deciding to take it. Don't get the decision fatigue of like, I have to make this decision today. No, Just don't make a decision, because you can make the decision tomorrow. The fact is, you're trying to give yourself the most opportunity to make the most decisions in the future. Some people might call this, well, you're just being lazy. I don't think so. I'm saying I don't have to make this decision today. I'm not going to. What am I going to eat for dinner in 6 weeks from now? Don't know, don't care. Don't have to make the decision today.
So if I decide not to decide, I get to check something off my to-do list for the day, is what I'm hearing.
Doug likes where this is going already.
I like it.
If you are a checklist person, if you've got the premium subscription to Todoist, you have mental satisfaction, I'll say it that way.
I just love
for
this.
Making boxes checked off, then yes, you should every day.
I'm the kind of person that if I do something that's not on the checklist, I write it on the checklist just so that I can check it off.
Right. Doug's to-do list is 10 things. Do not make the bed. Do not shower.
Right.
Do not. He's like, damn, I just woke up. I got 10 things knocked off my list.
Yeah.
I'm already successful for the day.
I can make decisions without any fatigue.
It's like I'm Tony Robbins.
Looking at a happy retirement, which for those of you that have seen me speak has been on my mind a lot lately. And I love talking about this at events and in my keynote talks. We see a lot of people who have studied personal finance, like Christine Benz over at Morningstar, talk about retirement comes to people in different ways. And we often don't get to choose, OG. But if you do get to choose, not going suddenly from mattering in the world of work to suddenly having to figure out where you do matter is a huge mistake if you can avoid it. If you can't avoid it, you can't avoid it, right? It comes differently for all of us. But if you can, trying to find a way to maybe go part-time first, then maybe quarter time, and working your way has two different things that happen. Number one, you generally tend to be happier and the transition is easier because you give yourself time to kind of, put your feet in the pool before you jump in and figure out where these other areas of your life are going to build purpose and excitement versus the huge amount of time that you had working hours. But then second, also that delaying retirement partially means more income in your portfolio. So when it comes to happiness and also to return, going slowly into retirement can yield huge results.
I will let you know because I'm not anywhere near that. So I will take your word for it. What are you doing? Going slowly into retirement, Joe? Is this foreshadowing?
Well, for me,
every day's retirement for you because you get to hang out with us.
Yeah, I actually, the concept of retirement for me is, why would I do anything different than what I do right now? Yeah. I feel a lot like Paul Merriman. Paul Merriman's like 82.
What would I do differently, right? Yeah. Like I already do what I want. I already hang out with the people that I want.
There is no such thing.
I kind of feel the same way.
Luckily for me, in hindsight, I was able to make that with a lot of help. I was able to make that decision at 40 years old. Most people don't have that ability. But for me, that was big. But I do see this a lot. Our friend Bill Yount over at Catching Up to Fi, Bill just negotiated a raise with the group that he works with and a cut in his hours. So he's going to make more per hour and he's going to work less hours as he starts transitioning into retirement. That's the best of both worlds if you can do that.
Yeah.
And the last thing I want to bring up in this area, OG, before we move on, is that there's a lot of pontification by financial pundits and people online and their Substack and their blog post and on their websites about sequence of return risk and how horrible this can be. Well, the conclusion that I see is that if you make your spending every single dollar that you have available and try to notch up the amount of spending you can make every year, you're going to have a miserable existence because every single thing that could go wrong, that news cycle that people are online following, you become the angry, frustrated person that's waiting for the other shoe to drop the entire time that they are retired. So looking at spending a lot of time focused on what is my quote safe withdrawal rate and trying to take every penny increases sequence of return risk, which makes a miserable retirement. I think if you want to have a better financial outcome and not have more investment risk, let's move away from that jagged edge of taking every dollar.
Have more money. Is that your advice?
Well,
just figured out.
Be more rich.
No, actually you can go the opposite. I mean, there are two things, right? Be more rich is number one. Yeah. But number two is if I can spend $5,000 a month, let's just make the number 4,500. Let's find a way to back away from that jagged edge.
Yeah. The other thing I would point out about the sequence of returns risk, God, this is another phrase that I'm starting to hate more and more.
I hate it so much.
I'll just call it being unlucky. That's going to be my new phrase, the being unlucky time. The fact is like that period of time only exists for a short while. To your point, if you've given yourself a little bit of margin of safety, because if you have the $1 million portfolio, the 4% rule says 40K. If your money can double, which it should double faster than inflation doubles historically, right? So inflation's going to double 20, 25-ish years. That's kind of the pace of doubling for inflation. So if your spend is 40, to get to 80 might take a quarter century or maybe 20 years, but it's going to be a while. The doubling of your money should happen in 10, 7, 12, somewhere in there. So maybe you have 2 doubles of your portfolio in the time that your spending doubles once. You follow? So the first double of your portfolio, the $1 million to $2 million, if your spending has gone from 40K to 45K, there is no more sequence withdrawals risk, right? You're good. You're done because you have so much margin of safety. And I think what you're talking about, Joe, is if you're spending $50,000 on your million because some obscure Perplexity research AI tool said that the new withdrawal rate's 5% if you get lucky. And so you just kind of get your lips right above water at 50K. And now the portfolio dips a little bit. To your point, you're going to be all freaking out the whole time because you're right on the edge. And the other piece of that is if you're trying to manage it, now you have higher percentage of your portfolio in fixed assets to avoid the sequence of withdrawals risk, which then in fact makes your portfolio as a whole grow slower than it would have if you'd have just had a little bit smaller withdrawal need.
You're miserable and you have less money.
And it's growing slower, so you're not getting out of it fast enough to put your whole head above water instead of your lips. So it's like this big psych spiral of I don't know.
There's several other ways that you can make this happen. I thought we'd put a few more of these into a lightning round, everybody. So, OG, I'm going to ask you, is this more return or more trouble? Ready? Here we go. More return or more trouble? Concentrated stock positions.
Trouble.
More leverage.
Lightning. What part don't you get?
I mean, I like it, but trouble.
Crypto yield products.
Okay, these are just words you made up.
So you're saying more trouble?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Options trading.
I mean, trouble. Are we getting anything here that's worth it?
Rebalancing.
Okay, that one's worth it. I don't remember the other one because I've said trouble so many times.
More return.
Return, yes.
Yes. Tax efficiency.
Yeah, return.
Checking your portfolio every hour.
Return.
There we go, everybody.
Wait, what?
Just going to see if we catch that. And I almost didn't. I was already rolling on the end.
Great job, OG. And next.
Nice. Wait, what? All right. We will link to all these on our show notes page at stackingbenjamins.com if you want to add more return to your portfolio. Of course, we have another step in this process coming up right after the break. OG and Anna and their segment of the financial basics. We also have all the past financial basics and the guides associated with those at our YouTube page, youtube.com/stackingbenjamins. All right. That means, Doug, it's time for your trivia question. And you're going to riddle us about an entrepreneur who, if he were alive, would be celebrating a birthday today.
Hey there, Stackers. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and what a day. First, it's Monday, the day I get rolling on all my goals. And then second, there's the OG and Anna segment coming up, which I can't get enough of. But best of all, I get to share another dose of incredible trivia that you can share with all of your friends. But how about this one? An icon of industry was born on today's date back in 1831 named Clarence Studebaker. Early in his career, he built the nation's biggest fleet of horse-drawn carriages. But that's not what he's known for. Later, after Clarence's death, the company he formed became the Studebaker Corporation, which made what? I'll be back right after I go get the Fiji water for OG and Anna's segment. This is going to be great.
I had a breakfast mentoring meeting yesterday with a young woman who was just amazing. She is graduating from college with a degree in wealth management, and she reached out hoping for some pointers. And listen, if somebody's in Texarkana and wants to go into this beautiful field of personal finance and helping people get their money together, that is incredible. But even more incredible is how she reached out, how she was trying to network. And I was having a discussion that finding the right person and avoiding the wrong person for a role, that's what can make or break an organization. And we just don't see that many qualified people. So how do you find them? Well, Indeed sponsored jobs is a boost whenever you need to find quality talent. If you're hiring, Indeed is all you need. You can stop struggling to get your job post even seen on other sites. You'll match with quality candidates with Indeed's sponsored jobs. Get matched with and hire quality candidates who can drive the results you need. Reach candidates who meet your specific criteria like skills, certifications, or location. It drives me crazy when I'm matched with all kinds of people who aren't a fit. I don't have that kind of time. People are finding quality hires on Indeed right now. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. Sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 95% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all the boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored job. And here's what's cool, stackers. You're going to get $75 in sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support Stacking Benjamins by saying you heard about Indeed right here at Stacking Benjamins. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. As you know, I love living in Texarkana, but you know what I really don't like a lot is the heat, except when it comes to how I get dressed. I want pieces that feel lighter, more breathable, things that are easy, but still put together. And that's why I keep coming back to Quince. They focus on high quality essentials that feel and look amazing. Think breathable linen, soft organic cotton, well-made basics, but without the luxury markup. It's that rare balance where everything feels elevated, but still effortless. Quince European linen pants and shirts, the perfect warm weather upgrade to add to your rotation, starting at just $34. Their tees are soft and easy to wear, and their lightweight cotton sweaters are perfect for cooler summer nights when we head north. Everything at Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. They work directly with ethical factories and cut out the middleman, so you're paying for quality, not brand markup. Quince goes way beyond clothing. Custom upholstered sofas, ceramic cookware, premium bedding. It's the kind of brand you end up recommending to everyone for everything. You've heard me talk about Quince so much. Somebody on Spotify even said, all I want to hear is you talk more about your pants, Joe, about how much you like your Quince pants. On my recent trip to New York City, just so I don't talk about the pants, you know what? It's the cashmere sweater that I absolutely loved and got to sport that thing not only to a Yankee game, but also a nice dinner out with our friend Crystal Hammond and the whole Saul-Sehy clan. Elevate your summer wardrobe. Go to quince.com/SB for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/SB. And you'll get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/SB.
Hey there, stackers. I'm Water getter and student baker, Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug. Clarence Studebaker. See what I did there? You made the connection? Yeah. Clarence Studebaker learned how to be a blacksmith in his father's shop when he was young, and he worked in a threshing factory. Learning both metalworking and how to operate a factory, he and his brother built the biggest supplier of wagons to the U.S. Army at the time. Later, after Studebaker had passed away and the wagon industry was rolling to a stop, the company made the transition, staying in transportation, to creating Studebaker automobiles. Did you get it right? Of course you did. And even if you didn't, your friends aren't going to know. See if they know the answer, but do that after you hear this segment from OG and Anna.
Okay, everybody, episode 4 of season 2, tax efficient withdrawals. In season 1, we built the tax control triangle, 3 buckets, pre-tax, brokerage, Roth. The whole point was to spread your money across these different tax buckets so that they have different tax treatments so that you have options in retirement. Today, we're going to talk about the question that a lot of people want answered. All right, cool. So I got all these buckets of money. Now, how do I take the money out?
Yeah, so we're going to think about this in the form of a distribution ladder. So we're going to look at the different buckets that you have, how those are going to help manage your taxable income, keeping you right in the tax bracket, and how those are going to affect different decisions too, or different issues that can come up. Some things we'll think about is the tax triangle, like you said. We'll look into provisional income, Social Security taxation, how your income impacts IRMA, Great Aunt IRMA.
Aunt IRMA, yeah.
And we'll talk about Roth conversions too. Like,
yes,
do we need to do these? How much are we doing them for? All of that.
Yes, all of it right now. All right, so before we talk about withdrawals, we got to know where we are. So as we think about this tax triangle, what's a healthy tax triangle look like?
So a healthy tax triangle would be a combination of having that pre-tax bucket, money that you have not been taxed on yet. We're going to have a bucket of brokerage assets where it has been previously taxed coming out, and the only tax is then going to be capital gains. And then the last bucket where it's been taxed before and it's going to come out tax-free, which is your Roth bucket typically.
And all of this can be found in our season 1 guidebook. It's in episode 6. So if you haven't seen that section or listened to that segment, you can go back and find it and kind of pencil out kind of where you're at right now.
Yeah, so you kind of want these fully balanced if possible, obviously depending on where you are in your financial journey, like that's possible or not possible.
Mm-hmm. And this can affect taxation on a bunch of stuff. You mentioned before Social Security and taxes on Social Security. I feel like a lot of people don't really realize that your Social Security is taxed. It kind of seems a little screwy, right? Like, so my Social Security is funded with my taxes and then I get taxed on my taxes. I mean, it sounds like a good gig if you can get it, if you're the government, I guess.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy. It's like the same as like unemployment income. I have the same
feeling about that.
The big piece here is that it can be taxed at different amounts, like different parts of your Social Security. It can be a lower amount if you control your other income sources. It can be a higher amount if that gets out of control. So it's like figuring out how do we optimize this and control your situation so that your Social Security is taxed at the least possible amount.
So I should just have all my money in a Roth then because none of that counts.
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if we could all go back in time and only put money in our Roth, that would be fantastic. But really it's about, balancing, like we said before, so that you've got options along the way. The best scenario is deferring taxes in your 401k, for example, pre-tax when you're a high tax bracket, paying taxes on that at a low tax bracket when you convert it to a Roth potentially. And you do all this in between the time that you retire and when RMDs kick off or when Social Security starts. And Social Security can start between 62 and 70 for most people. You can see how complicated this can start getting as you start layering in these different decisions along the way. And if you're not paying attention to it, one of the areas that I think catches a lot of people by surprise is this whole thing called IRMA. This is our great friend Aunt IRMA, IRMMA.
She's sneaky girl.
What the heck is IRMA and why do I give a crap? And, what does it have to do with withdrawals?
It's basically an additional premium on your Medicare premiums if your income gets above a certain level. So you're going to take Medicare at 65. This can start, IRMA can start looking back at your income at age 63. So if you're like, oh, cool, I'm retired, I'm going to do Roth conversions, I'm going to convert a bunch of stuff over. Well, and you're not thinking about Medicare at that point because you're 63, you're still using Marketplace or whatever, and you're 2 years away. This can kick you in the butt when you're 65, and now your Medicare premiums go from like $300 a month to $800 a month.
Yeah.
It's important to consider that. Yeah, per person.
Could be per person. Yeah.
Yeah, or higher than that too. But it's important to consider how that's going to be a piece of this puzzle when you're doing distributions in retirement or doing Roth conversions, how those can impact then your Medicare premiums.
All right. So transitioning to Roth conversions then, because you kind of talked a little bit about that. Like, obviously, we got to be thinking through tax brackets, Social Security taxation, IRMA issues, RMD things. Is the juice worth the squeeze here, or are we just kind of chasing ourselves, in a circle?
For certain people it is, and that's like a big decision to figure out like who is the right candidate for this. It comes down to like, what is your total income for the year? This is why we don't do Roth conversions until November typically. Mm-hmm. We're not going to know what your year looks like. Hey, if we want to do Roth conversions in March, but then you tell us in August that you're going to buy a house and we need to take money out or we need to move stuff around, like, well, we just totally screwed up, something that could have been really helpful for you. So it's important for us to do this at the end of the year when we know what your total income is. We're going to keep you below IRMA increases. We're going to keep you below a certain tax bracket. Like, there's a lot that goes into Roth conversions. It's not just, picking a number out of the sky and that's what we're going to convert.
And all of this kind of ties together. In the workbook, you'll find that we've got 3 years modeled out 3 years for you to model out in terms of your withdrawal sequence table, year 1, 2, 3, kind of mapping out how much should come from each bucket. This is not set in stone. This is not, a contract, for life. It's really just kind of giving you an opportunity to jot down your thoughts here of where do we think we're going to be in terms of these next couple of years of withdrawals, if you're at that stage of your life. And this is kind of where that whole tax triangle pays off. If you're 30 right now and you're going, I don't care. Well, I don't know what we're listening to this for. I got 30 years before I have to take any withdrawals. Well, this is the decision tree that you can make when you're in your 30s and 40s of like, where am I saving money so that I've got the flexibility when I'm 50 or when I'm 55 or when I'm 60 and I'm financially independent and I retire, where's my cash flow going to come from? Mm-hmm. All of financial planning, I think, is really just built around how do I put myself in the best possible scenario to have future options available to me?
Yeah.
Make as many decisions that give me as many decisions in the future, and some people think that's a little silly because, you're kind of never ending decision tree, but it's flexibility. We're solving for flexibility because if there's one thing that I think that I've learned over the years, nobody can predict the future. I can't tell you what the stock market's going to do tomorrow. I can't tell you what tax rates are going to be tomorrow. I can't tell you who's going to be president tomorrow. None of this stuff is predictable. We can have guides. We can have an idea. But the idea is we want to make sure that at the end of the year, we can visit from a tax standpoint, let's say, and say, hey, this is what we think 2027 is going to look like. Or here's what 2026 has shaped up to be. What changes can we execute on in these last, 60 days of the year? Mm-hmm. Homework for today, then, Anna, is what?
First, pull that tax triangle snapshot from season 1 so that we talked about, those different buckets. Let's start with that. Like, if you're still in the financial journey where you're getting to the point of withdrawals, you're not there right now, let's focus on like, how can we control this right now? How can we make this more balanced? The other thing that you can do is if you are within 10 years of retirement, you think you're somewhere around there, start looking into Roth conversion math. It's going to creep up on you. You're going to want to kind of have a little bit of a handle on this. And you're going to want to calculate, like, where is the gap that I can do Roth conversions? I'm, at this piece of the tax bracket, I have X amount of dollars that I could convert to tap out on this bracket. How much could I do? So that's kind of what you want to start calculating.
Kind of start modeling that out before you get there. Because, you're right. At the end of the day, this stuff just shows up super fast. You think 10 years, but for those of us with 19-year-olds, they were 9 just a second ago. So 10 years goes by pretty snappy. If you have no idea what we're talking about in terms of the guidebook, it's because you don't have it, because you didn't get one, and you're not cool. And only the cool kids get guidebooks. So if you want to be a cool kid, you're going to go to stackingbenjamins.com/basics guide, and you put your name and email in. We'll send you an email with both of them, season 1 and season 2. You can go to YouTube and follow along on season 1 if you're a little behind, and then catch up on season 2 as they get posted there. They're in the show every Monday, have been for the last, 12 or 13 weeks, something like that. Golly, have we been doing this long? But that's where we have all the stuff, all the homework that you can fill in and kind of follow along. So stackingbenjamins.com/basics guide. Next week, we're going to talk about stock options, RSUs, ESPP, incentive options, non-qualified options. Well, we're probably going to basically scratch the surface on that because Joe only gives us like this much time to cover that much stuff. But it'll be a fun topic for sure. So tune in next week for those. And I guess back to you, Joe, in the studio or basement, wherever you happen to be.
Hi, I'm David Stein. When I'm not talking to other people about money on Money for the Rest of Us, I'm stacking Benjamins.
Let's mosey out on the back porch, Doug, because there's something that before we get too into just what's going on in the community, something all our community members want to be well aware of.
Yeah, I mean, I felt, as one would, I felt incredibly honored when I got a friend request on Facebook, because that didn't happen that often to me. And I was really excited when I saw one from the Stacking Benjamins Inner Circle. And then it dawned on me, hold on, I am the core of the Inner Circle. Like, if anybody's already in the Inner Circle of Stacking Benjamins Basement, it's this guy. So how am I getting an invite to join the Inner Circle? And then I started to smell a dead fish.
Oh,
right.
It's so frustrating.
It's scammy, isn't it?
It's so frustrating. The Inner Circle is the basement, the bad groups. If you're new here, you're like, what are bad groups? Benjamin's After Dark groups. I always forget that we have to not use the acronym because people, as somebody said that to me the other day, I was like, oh, we have a bad group meeting in Boston coming up, and I'm trying to make sure that I'm able to attend. And somebody I knew is like, what's a bad group? I'm like, oh,
oops.
Yeah.
But this Inner Circle thing, should I be honored, or is this like my home warranty is expired and it looks official, but it's not really?
Tell them no, stackers. Tell them no. We definitely want to stay away from scammy stuff with people that we don't know. There is no such thing called the Stacking Benjamins Inner Circle.
Well, I mean, there is, but if you get the invite, it's coming from me. If you get the invite to join the Inner Circle, there's only one guy that's coming from.
I mean, look at the way we name stuff. The bad groups, the basement. Yeah.
We are anything but elitist.
Have none of that.
Hey, can we transition to talk about a great post that I saw a few days back? Well, now it's probably 10 days back-ish, but about car purchases. Can I dive into that for a minute, Joe?
Sure, yeah.
So this was by anonymous member. We have a couple of those, but it's a legit question that I think a lot of people are interested in. So if you didn't see this post,
well, it's a comment, right? It's a comment.
Well, I guess you're right.
I don't think there's a question.
You're right.
It's somebody that knows the auto industry pretty well based on this post.
They at least know the retail side of the auto industry. Yeah, for sure. So this was a tip that Anonymous put out there, and that's where all the best tips come from. Are from the anonymous people. But they said a thought about car purchases and tips mentioned by Joe and Beth in episode 1841. If you are buying a new vehicle, the time of the month matters. Dealers will often dig a bit deeper at the end of the month. I've done this on several vehicles and saved big. We buy new and run it to the ground, Subarus, Outbacks, Ford F-150s, etc. I always check the KBB, Edmunds, and Consumer Report MSRP and sales price ranges for the make and model we're looking to purchase in the exact trim and color. Then they start calling and emailing the sales managers at local dealers within a 60 to 90 mile radius around the 20th of the month. It helps to stay firm that you want the lowest out the door price and you want it detailed in writing. You can do all of this. This is me adding in my 2 cents. You can do all of this without ever leaving your house. Like, dealers now very much will negotiate, based on email and over the phone. They would never used to, but now they're starting to.
This was the key to the last two car purchases I negotiated after we had a discussion with Phil Rosen from Edmunds on the show. Do it all via text and email.
Yeah. Another great tip that Anonymous puts in here is to make sure you ask if that minimum price, the out the door price that they're offering you includes a finance incentive. Because a lot of times that price is only going to be valid if you use their financing.
But boy, and their take on this was great though. Go ahead and use the financing, even though it might suck.
And here we go. And what is the minimum finance amount to get the incentive? I have financed $8,000 to save $1,000, and you pay it off on the very first statement, which, by the way, you got to find out if you can do that without a penalty, because there are some of those finance contracts that you can enter into with automotive, with dealerships, and you're not allowed to pay it off super
And the cool
early.
thing here is to think about the dealer's motivation, because in this case, Doug, the dealer doesn't care when you pay it off. You can tell the dealer what you're up to. The dealer does not care. This is a third party. The financing arm is a whole different party, and they're giving the dealership, which is usually independently owned, they're giving them an incentive to get the financing in place. So if there is an early payoff, you can go ahead and ask the person and say, hey, I want to pay this off as soon as possible. When's first moment I can do that?
I think you're mostly right. They're, depending on how they are incented by the finance arm, it could be Chrysler Financial or it could be a completely third party. But depending on how they're incented, they may not be super forthright and open with you because they want that kickback to them for signing you up as a finance person. But I think generally you're okay. Just be it like you just said, being open and honest. So Anonymous is saying, so even if you have other financing and you were going to put a chunk down, it may help to play the game. By pitting dealer against dealer via email and phone and being willing to jump through a few hoops at the end of the month has helped me save thousands. Some dealers will not play, but I have always found one that will, because they want to hit their sales numbers for their brand incentive at the end of the month. So this is why you start this process around the 20th of the month. That gives you some, 10 days-ish to nail down the deal. So, I think I love this post. This is the community helping the community. And I wanted to put a spotlight on this.
Fantastic post. I would love it if we've got anybody in the car dealership industry or anybody who's worked there before to talk about those incentives. Because my understanding has been that they get incentive for you to take out the loan. Doug, I never thought about the fact that, hey, maybe they go, hey, it's got to stay on the books for 3 months.
Yes.
Or got to stay on the book for 6 months or whatever it is.
Yep. Because that's how the financing arm, it's the only way the financing arm is making the money in most cases.
Sure.
Or they've got a certain number of months to hit basically their, to turn it profitable.
Would love to know that. Either write to me, joe@stackingbenjamins.com, or do a post in the basement for our Facebook. The basement is the inner circle. There is no such thing. If you get invited to the inner circle, tell them no and report it, because that's not us.
It'll go on their permanent record.
Yes.
Just like your parents threatened you with.
This goes on your permanent record.
Right.
All right. Well, we do have a permanent record at the end of every show, and that is, what are the 3 things you should have taken away from this particular episode? Doug, what would be on our top 3 here?
Well, Joe, first, take some advice from our featured conversation. Looking to add returns to your portfolio? Stop thinking about esoteric investments and start thinking about systems. Easy steps like an investment policy statement and tax strategies can add tens or hundreds of thousands to your end results. Second, take advice from Anna and OG. By focusing on your withdrawal strategy, your money is spent more orderly, which means more living for you without any more work. I love less work. Putting that on my to-do list. Do, period, less, period, work, period. Wow, another task accomplished. I'm rolling. But the big lesson? Don't ask Joe's mom about sequence of returns if you haven't trimmed her shrubs over the weekend. She'll tell you that first, you don't trim the shrubs means you risk not being invited to Monday night's cookout, and third, then not having the opportunity for the cake that's served afterwards. That's horrible sequence of return risk. So, you know what I'm doing right now? Grabbing the shears. This show is the property of SB Podcast, LLC, copyright 2026, and is created by Joe Saul-Sehy. You'll find out about our awesome team at stackingbenjamins.com, along with the show notes and how you can find us on YouTube and all the usual social media spots. Come say hello. And oh yeah, before I go, not only should you not take advice from these nerds, don't take advice from people you don't know. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Before making any financial decisions, speak with a real financial advisor. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and we'll see you next time back here at the Stacking Benjamin Show.